Go whenever you want, dear.
Okay.
Welcome to Up Close. The host, River Maria Urke, and here to help me pull this off is the mutual poet, Julie Martin.
Hello.
We like to showcase one poet a month here at Up Close, with an interview, a poetry reading, and a giveaway. It is our goal to introduce to you the person behind the poems. With that, I need to do a little bit of housekeeping and remind our Zoom audience to remain muted during the duration of the show, and that we will be having a giveaway today. The details will be later. We have a shout out to our sponsors, the League of Minnesota Poets, and to remind us all that we are being recorded, and tomorrow it will be on YouTube. So with that, I'd like you to sit back and let me introduce to you our October Up Close poet, Amanda Bailey. Today, Amanda is here to represent herself, and she is here for the League of Minnesota Poets as their president. But more on that later. Amanda is a poet and a writer living in Mankato with her co-grandma, Gina. They are grandmas to 2 grandsons and 1 granddaughter. And actually, they're the reason those 2 actually moved to Minnesota back in 2012. But first, a little about Amanda. She was born in Pensacola, Florida, the closest big city to where her parents lived in the lowlands of oh wow, I almost forgot here, Alabama, right there in the Gulf. So that's where all her family's from. We're going to hear more about that later too. She grew up there and in Las Vegas, Nevada, where she graduated high school in 1975. She attended different schools in different towns, and as she states, she explored every corner of the U.S. Amanda graduated college degree in journalism in 1987 from a college in Yellow Springs, Ohio. She lived in Seattle for many, many years, like 17 years. She started her own business. Then she moved into a motorhome. In 2004, she was our first original digital nomad, and we'll hear about that later. And like I said before, Amanda and Gina moved to Minnesota in 2012. Currently, they live in Mankato. Amanda's very active participant in her local arts community. She has won several awards for her poetry and has appeared in various journals, on a sign in the Mankato Poetry Walk and Bride, and anthologies upon waking 58 voices speak out from the shadows of abuse. And after the equinox in 2020, she received the Blackberry Peach Poetry Prize for written and spoken word. Without further ado, let's welcome Amanda Bailey. I think you're muted, dear.
Oh, I think I got it now. Hi, River.
Hi. So I asked if you could start us out today with a poem.
Okay, I'm going to start with Grandmama's Golden Saddle. You need that like a hog needs a saddle, Grandmama said, typically eager to deprive because deprivation leads to salvation. A place beyond earthly reach, but not beyond earthly riches. I'm going to a place where the streets are paved with gold, Grandmama said. Peter's pearly gates, beyond which she'll wallow eternally in all pleasures foregone. But for now, forgetting eternity has no beginning, she will forego, as others should, be good, and live on this earth like a saddled hog.
Woo-hoo. Definitely hear the southern roots in you there, dear. So you were born in Pensacola, Florida.
That's right.
And
That's right.
it to me sounded like my hometown, where I was in Duluth, and you're on the border, and you have a little land or a little water between. We
Right.
call it Twin Ports. So, and
That's right. That's right. There's Perdido Bay is between the Panhandle of Florida and Alabama. And in fact, there's a little town right there called Florabama, because they're never sure which state they're actually in.
That's funny. But your whole family is from this area in Alabama. Like you called it the low land?
Low country. We call it low country because we're right down there on the water, right on the Gulf of Mexico.
You have a story from your family from that area that goes way back. Can you tell us?
Though I got a lot of stories. I'm not sure which
one.
All right. You want to know about?
How far back?
Well, gosh, my family's been here in this country since before the American Revolution. So they were living in Kingsport, Tennessee. It's now Kingsport, Tennessee, but back in the 1700s, it wasn't called that. Anyway, that's where they migrated down from, and they were one of the first white families to settle in Birmingham. And in fact, there's Bailey Road there, and there's Bailey. They settled on a river that's now called Bailey's River. So, my family's been there for, well, many generations. And my mother's family too. My mother's family is from Loxley, Alabama, a little tiny town down in Alabama. So we've been in those parts for a very long time.
And then you and your parents, and 3 siblings moved a bit. You moved around a little bit till you started school, and you ended up moving, and your parents still live in Las Vegas, Nevada.
That's right.
But you consider yourself raised in Alabama too, and why is that?
Well, my brother, he's 2 years older than me. So there was just the 2 of us at the time. In 1961, my parents moved out to Las Vegas. And of course, I had to go with them. I was only 4. So they insisted. But my father worked at the Nevada test site there. He made rocket fuel back in the 60s. And but we always went back home, and my parents always called it home and always felt like home. So every summer we'd go back home, and both my parents worked. So we spent a lot of time back home where we could be passed around from one family to another, and my parents could have free childcare, so I really grew up in 2 places, and it was an interesting contrast. I had to leave the Southern accent down in the South, but it was always easy to pick it up again. I just had to be around it.
That reminds me. Our next that was actually no, because remember I lost 2 questions and I had to restart them. Oh. I had a question I remember that I had first time around, and that was about your dialect, and that we don't hear the accent, the Southern accent nowadays. But there's one word you told me about that will give you away to anybody that's from the South.
Right, right. You know, because you can't give up all your words. So people will hear me say fixin', fixin'. I'm fixing to do something. I never just do something. I have to fix to do it. You know, so so that's always a dead giveaway. Even if I don't have the Southern accent, anybody from the South will say, "So where in the South are you from?"
Gives you away completely. And it doesn't take you, it takes you like 2 seconds to pick up the accent when you start talking to a family member.
Well, you know, and I don't even think about it. You know, they call me, you know, somebody call me on the phone, and if they sound like that, I'm going to just start sounding like that. It's just built right in. But you know, when you start moving around the country, you discover that a lot of people just don't take you seriously if you have an Alabama accent. You know, they just act like you don't know anything. So, you know, I lived up in New England for quite a few years. Now they got a really crazy accent, if you ask me, but but they didn't see it that way.
No, we all don't realize what we always sound. Um, you started writing poetry actually in elementary school, and you had your first experience with publishers back in 6th grade. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it's a pretty short story, you know. I submitted a poem and they rejected it.
But where did you submit it?
Oh, it was Good Housekeeping. Good Housekeeping. You know, my mom she subscribed to that magazine, and I got an A on that poem in school. I thought it was pretty good, you know. So I thought they would be real excited to get it.
Oh, so now let's do a gigantic jump to college. And I'm curious of what your experience was being a radical lesbian at the time that you were in college and the areas. Like, how was it for you, both home and college and life?
Well, you know, when I first started college, I wasn't a radical lesbian. I was mostly confused. Okay. It didn't come out until a little while later. I mean, I knew that I was interested in women, but you know, I was still a virgin. So you know, if you don't actually do it, then are you a lesbian? I don't know. So it just, but then I met somebody. I met somebody, and that's when it started. So I actually left college and followed her to New England and lived in New Hampshire for a while. And then that's where I started to come out. It was 1976. And, you know, it was not a good time to be coming out in a small town anywhere, really. And so she wanted to stay in the closet and I didn't. And so that puts a strain on things because, you know, I mean, my being out would pretty much pull her out as well. So, but we have been friends all these many, many years. I just talked to her last night. Okay. So we've stayed in touch, but it was tough times for sure. And being, I was raised in a Southern Baptist style, I guess. And so it was a very difficult time for me personally, just realizing myself that, you know, just coming out for myself. And then the family, it was tough. I mean, I don't know how much I want to go into it, but then when in the early 80s is, I would say, when I really came out, because then I was living in Phoenix, Arizona, and I didn't have any family there, you know, and I really came out. I worked for a feminist newspaper called Women's Weekly, and I and about 4 other women started the very first gay pride march that Phoenix, Arizona had ever seen.
Wow.
And you know, we were I went to one, there was a social club for gays there in Phoenix, and I went to, try and drum up some supporters and get people that would go in the march, right? And the president of that club, after I gave my spiel, the president stood up and discouraged everyone from going. And he said, there's going to be snipers, so.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and we thought there might be, because it was 1981, I think, 80 or 81 in Phoenix. And it was kind of those times. But there were 50 of us. There was actually 50 of us basically that showed up to march. And there were no gun snipers, but there was a handful of Christians that threw tomatoes at us.
Oh my God.
So, but I'll take a tomato over a bullet any day.
Yes. Oh, wow. Well, can we hear another poem?
Well, yeah, I went through some of my older poems because you had mentioned maybe reading something from that time. Back in the early 80s, I did submit to some of the lesbian feminist journals, Sinister Wisdom and Common Lives, Lesbian Lives, Maynard. A bunch of these aren't around anymore, but I was publishing in those. So I have a 40-year-old poem here.
Wow.
that I wrote during those times, and it's called Sweet Sister. Sunshine slowly climbs the eastern mountains, spilling subtle rays through strong cracks and crevices. The light of morning begins a new day. Silence slides across the skies, slipping into the hearts of kneeling, simple lives. The prayer of morning begins a new day. Slowly, sisters gather, sharing stories of oppression. Sounds of pain from wombs ring out. The rage of morning begins a new day. Someone sings, bringing us to our feet, standing to struggle for the some days we righteously deserve. Determination ends the morning and begins a new day. So that was in that was published in a journal called Up Against the Wall, Mother. And that journal was for women in crises. So, and then in the last line, morning, that morning, determination ends the morning, and that was spelled like the grieving kind of mourning.
Oh, okay. That was good. Well,
I have one more. It's very short, and it's kind of a long time favorite. I wrote it in 1979. This was my coming out. The poem goes like this. Explanations abound, all of which can be found, disputed and turned around, leaving only the fact remaining, quiet, simple, and unchanging. I love women.
That's good. Was it fun digging through those old poems?
It was interesting, I have to say, I mean, it's kind of, I'm glad I still have it all, I mean, a lot of times I was just going to burn it all.
Yep. Well, can you tell us about the many instruments you can play?
Well, that makes it sound like I actually play them. Okay, so I dabble in instruments. I do play the ukulele, but I don't play any songs. Everybody's always disappointed because I didn't learn songs because I just like to play it. So I make things up. And I don't sing, so why would I need to play a song, right?
Yeah.
But I'm really attracted to different kind of instruments. I play the jaw harp. I have a cigar box guitar that I play. Sounds a lot like a bass. It's got only 3 strings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't like to get overwhelmed by strings. And then
oh, here's a picture of you.
also I play the saw. Okay, and I remember I was living in a travel trailer in Phoenix and practicing, trying to learn the saw. I sent away for it, you know, back in those days, you could order from a catalog, and I sent away for this musical saw, and so I don't know if anybody's heard the saw being played, but it sounds kind of like a theremin, which sounds kind of like on Star Trek, you know, when the music is like warbly and eerie. It's like woo, sort of like that. And so I'm sitting in my front room with the windows open, and I'm learning this saw. I'm trying to get actual notes and like play a scale. And I noticed people are going out, quite a few people are out in the street looking up, you know. And so I wonder what they were all looking at, right? So I put it down and I went outside and I looked up, and I'm looking up and I don't see anything up there. I don't know what they're looking at. And I look around and they all start going back in their house. So I go back in and I start playing again, and then they're coming out again.
Oh, God. So funny.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Then I realized, oh my God, they're looking for a UFO. But yeah, most of the instruments I play, that's the kind of reaction I get.
Oh, but you also play the harmonica.
Oh, right. I do. I play around with it. I have it here. Again, I mean, this one I did learn songs because it's actually, the harmonica was sort of the first thing I started playing. And because you can play by numbers, you know, on the harmonica. And so I did learn some songs, but I don't remember any of them. But I can play a little phrase. I don't know how it's going to sound on this, but.
Woo!
Was that bad? Does it sound?
That was fabulous.
Oh, okay.
You made music. Okay, so after college, and then after, you know, you lived in Seattle for a long time. Then you packed everything up and moved into a mobile.
A motorhome, right?
A motorhome, and in that, you basically be called the original digital nomad. Now, could you explain that to us?
Well, I think nowadays people know what that is, but back in 2004, there wasn't too many people doing that. You know, it took me 12 years to get through college. I was working and paying for it and going to different ones wherever I was living because I traveled around a lot. But I ended up getting my degree in communications and video production. So when I moved to Seattle, I was bartending, and that would pay the basic bills. And I started a video company. And mostly I was doing training videos for companies, for corporations. I was trying to sell point of purchase advertising on video, and everybody thought I was crazy. Okay. So none of that worked. But in the meantime, because I had just finished college, I was already on the internet. And the only people there were my college friends. Okay. So but because of that, I learned HTML really early. And so there was a company called egghead.com. It was a software company, and they were based in Seattle, but they were the very first retailer that had no brick and mortar stores. They were exclusively online sales. And so I started doing their product copy, and I would just upload it directly to their website. So basically I was writing their online catalog. And then I started doing that for some other companies. And I started to really like that because it was much easier than carrying around all that video equipment. Because back in those days, video stuff was big. I mean, these were tube cameras even. Okay, so it was a lot of work carrying around, and then a big old lighting kit, and you had to set up all that lighting and stuff. So anyway, I started doing that, and then one day I realized that, Seattle's kind of dreary weather-wise, and if I moved to someplace like Mobile, Alabama, I would be doubling my income because the cost of living in Mobile is so much lower than Seattle. And so I started to get really excited about that idea, and I decided, okay, I'm going to leave Seattle. I'm doing it. Okay. But then I thought, then I'd be living in Mobile, Alabama, and I'm not sure that's the best place for me, even these days, So I ended up just moving into a motorhome because at that point I had already been to all 50 states, and I had already lived in every region of the country. And so I knew that, they're all good. They've all got their pros and cons, so I could just live in a motorhome until I decide where I want to land.
Mhm.
So that's how that started. And then I met a woman, okay, who's from Minneapolis, who had sold everything just like me. She had sold everything and moved into a motorhome full time. And I've been on the road for 2 years when I met her, and she had been on the road for 1 year. And so we fell in love, and we started traveling together, and it was great. We traveled together for 5 or 6 years, I guess. And then she has a son, and he started having kids, and that's how we ended up here in Mankato. That's why it's kind of fun. I like to say, yeah, I never had any kids, but I've got 3 grandkids. It's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, totally. That's you're pretty close with them.
Very close. I'm very close with them. Yep.
What were their ages? Are they teenagers now?
Well, the first one is Mia, the girl. She's 12, and then the 2 boys. One is 8, and the youngest one is 2.
Oh, so really little.
Yeah, really little. We're having a sleepover. We're having a sleepover in 2 weeks. I'm so excited. We're going to decorate for Halloween.
Cool. Yeah, I think 2, 3 is one of my favorite ages.
Well, that's funny because I think Gina really likes the toddlers. I sort of like them when they're a little bigger and I can have, really deep philosophical conversations with them. And they can roll
they're rolling their eyes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, kids. Wow. I think we better talk about the giveaway.
Okay.
So we're going to have 2 books she's going to give away.
Right.
We're going to play our number game like we usually do. So it'll be each person will have 1 guess, one put in the chat, 1 through 50. And whoever comes closest without going over, there's 2 numbers out there, I will win a book. And what do we have for them, Amanda?
This is after the equinox. This is was put out by Cracked Walnut, a chapter of the League of Minnesota Poets. They had a literary festival in 2018, and they went around the state doing readings and collected poems from, I think there's 50, I don't know how many, but there's more than 50 poets in here. And so it's an anthology, and it came out in 2019. And there's some really great poems in here. I have one poem in here, but yeah, I have one poem in here, and I always like the anthologies because I like to get all the different poets. So that's the book. Did you want me to show the other one, or are we doing?
Yeah, show the other one.
Okay, so the other book I have to give away is another anthology. It's Upon Waking, 58 Voices Speak Out from the Shadows of Abuse, and this is co-edited by Annette Gagliardi and Laura Cozy-Lanick. And I have a poem in here. This was a really meaningful project for me. When this book came out, Laura and Annette arranged a reading that was private. It was just the poets that were in this book. And it was such a healing process for me to be a part of that reading and to meet these other poets who have, gone through abuse and survived it and are writing about it. So this is a really important book, I think, and means a lot to me. So, and as long as I'm talking about Annette and Laura, I want to mention that they are coming to Mankato this Saturday. We're doing a reading together at Sidetracked here in Mankato. It's a little art and poetry shop. So these are the two books that I have for the giveaway.
So everyone, you just put your guess in the chat, and at the end, Julie will come up with winners for us. So now we're going to reach a subject very important to you, and that is the League of Minnesota Poets. Last April, you became the president. Before that, you were actually the vice president for 6 years under Peter Stein was the president. Does it go, are the terms 2 or 3 years?
The terms are 2 years.
Okay.
And the president can serve 3 consecutive terms, and that's it. It's the only office with term limits. So you could be the vice president forever and ever and ever, but people probably won't really let you.
But and then aren't you not like the historian of the league too?
I am the historian now as well. Yes, and I just took 4 boxes over to the Historical Society about a month ago. We have a collection at the Minnesota State Historical Society. It's pretty extensive collection because the League of Minnesota Poets was, established in 1934. So we've been around for a long time, and also have created a lot of publications. So we're keeping everything going over at the Historical Society.
Well, and we're how many years is that? Is that like 80 some years?
What is it? 86? Is it
86 years? Now,
no, it's got an 88. It's 88 years, 1934 to 2022. That's 88 years.
And all that time has been always run by volunteers.
Always volunteers, right. It's the first meeting was at the Lowry Hotel back in 1934. That's when they first established it. There was 33 members that met and established it. And then by the end of the year, because they started in February, and by the end of that year, they had 74 members. And the following year, they had 154 members. So it took off pretty quickly.
How many members are there today?
Well, there's around 200. There's around 200 members today.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, back in the 30s, there wasn't a lot of competition. Now we have a lot of poetry organizations in Minnesota now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's really a great organization because, I mean, it's not only is it volunteer run, I mean, it's a peer mentoring association, which is what I love about it. When I came to Mankato in 2012, okay, right after I got here, I started going to the Southern Minnesota Poets Society, and I joined that chapter and the league at the same time in 2013. And it was one of the first groups that I really felt a strong sense of belonging with, when I came here. And because, people are sharing their poetry with you. I mean, it's kind of courageous for one thing, and it's also, I mean, it's revealing. So you develop close relationships with these people, and everybody's so supportive. And I realized that it really does take, it really does require, like a village. I mean, it's like raising a poet is like raising a child. It takes a village. But no, there's a citizenship. It's like a literary citizenship, and everybody supports each other. And then the more you are around poets, the more you keep going, the more you keep putting yourself out there. So it's been a great experience for me, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity to serve as an officer in the league.
How many chapters are there?
Well, right now we have there's nine chapters. We have a chapter up in Ely. We have a chapter in Duluth. We have a chapter over in the Brainerd area, and we have a chapter in St. Cloud, Sartell, and we have a chapter in Rochester, and there are 2 chapters in the Twin Cities. And then there's a chapter down here in Mankato. And then I started a chapter, well, this November will be a year ago. Okay, so last November I started a chapter online called Penned Poets. And that's been going really well. And a woman from Pennsylvania joined. I mean, I was so surprised when, and I said, how did you hear about us? And she had gone to a writers group in Wisconsin, and they told her about my Pen Poets group. So she joined us too. So it's not just Minnesotans, but it's mostly Minnesotans. But this chapter has been really great too, because people that don't have one near them can do this online on the Zoom. And also in the winter, it's hard for a lot of people to get out. We have, members out in rural areas that can't get to in-person meetings. And so they're taking advantage of this, of the new Zoom world, the post-COVID Zoom craze.
It's also the Pen Poets, every week is a different theme. You have something different every week that goes on. Right. We have rotating formats. So we do in one meeting we'll read other people's poems, so like famous poems, and look at those and discuss them. And then we'll have the next meeting will be a writing workshop. And then the third meeting will be a support session, where we just, have something we're working on, and we'll get some help with it from everybody in the group.
And then the fourth one is sort of, it's a performance. So we have like a featured poet does an 8 to 10 minute reading and then gets some verbal feedback on the presentation. And then after that, we do a little read around. So everybody has an opportunity to read at least one poem and get some feedback in the chat.
Yes, I'm part of it.
Yeah, you're there. I've seen you there. And then
so you got to add that there's somebody from Wisconsin too then.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Well, and then, we have, we come to pen poets. I mean, we come to up close.
Oh, yeah. That's every 3 months on the 5th.
Yeah, that next year it's going to be the 5th Wednesdays, right? Yeah.
Let's see. Well, and my own eyes are in. Is there anything that's, well, I just answered my own question. But I was going to ask if there's anything new, and the Pen Poets is what's new this year. Is there anything else that was new?
Well, yeah, now the League of Minnesota Poets was established in like 1934, and then there was a national organization came on the scene sometime, I think it was 1952, I think it was in the 50s. The National Federation of State Poetry Societies was formed. And so they brought in chapters, okay, of state poetry societies. And so there's about a little over 30 of these state poetry societies that belong to, that are part of the National Federation of State Poetry Societies. And this year they started a national slam, because back in 2018, the National Slam organization, they folded. They stopped doing the national slam competition. And so the NFSPS decided to pick that up. And so this year we did our first qualifier slam. The slam is called the Blackberry Peach Slam, National Slam. And so this year we did our first slam. We did a collaboration with Button Poetry, and we held a slam at the Ice House in the Twin Cities, and we have a winner from that who is going to Daytona in a couple of weeks to do the National Slam competition in Florida. And of course, we're hoping he wins. So, but now this coming year, what we're going to do, in fact, I'm working right now with Watermark Arts Center up in Bemidji. And they were reviving their slam series. And so we're going to collaborate with them. And they're going to have a slam every other month there. And we'll take the winners from those slams into our final slam next year. Because we're going to also do, some slams in the various regions around the state. So get 4 or 5 different areas, and then we're going to bring them all to the Twin Cities for the final slam qualifier, and that winner will then go to the national. And there's,
are you guys going to have some kind of like workshops on performing poetry?
Yes, I think so. I think we're going to do a little mini series on Zoom over winter to do a little kickoff, and performance is going to be one of them. But another one that I want to do in this mini series, I'd like to do some workshops on the business end of the poetry. Like once, okay, so now I have my book, how do I promote it?
The marketing. Yeah, that's where so many of us artists, us poets, we fail.
Yeah.
I mean, we
It's
just
challenging. It's challenging.
It is. Think of if we had like two of us around that could really like dive into do marketing. The rest of us would just steal them all. Yeah. But
Right. We need agents.
yes. Well, and let's see here. I think we are getting close. Let's hear from Julie if we have any winners.
Nope, nobody won. Just kidding. Hardy came in closest for the first with the number 41. Congratulations, Hardy. And Charlie Curry came in second with the number 27 without going over your second number.
Actually, Petey picked the 41. I would like to take credit, but it wasn't me.
No, I'm a silent partner, so it's hard.
I'm getting pretty good at filling up my library. This is great. Thank you.
So cute.
Well, why don't you two send some direct message to Amanda with your addresses. And now, Amanda, do you have like two, three poems for us to hear?
Yes. Let's see.
And we might be out of time then, everybody. It's just rolls along quickly.
Well, my poems are pretty short, so we'll probably have extra time. Okay, so this poem, I like this poem. I wrote this poem after I read about a study that said that talking fast is more convincing. Okay. You know, which I thought was interesting. So this is called Beware of Fast Talkers. Itty bitty chit chat barrels down the track like a runaway train's clickety clack. Silver tongue talk slides in lickety quick, 'cause that old horse trader's trickety slick. Starts with some innocent yakety yak, before you know it, there's no turning back. Listening slides you down that slippery slope, leaving you prone to fast talk's trickery dope. You got to ignore all that slickety scat, 'cause it'll flat knock you rickety splat. When words bust out like buckshot splatter and not your friendly truck stop chatter, be careful, 'cause all that spitting and spewing could easily leave you sitting and stewing. Don't want to buy no Florida swampland? Stay on your toes and show 'em the stop hand. I'm putting this to you as fast as I can. Plug up your ears, don't listen to the man. Gotta say it quick, 'cause the faster it's said, the more likely it'll stick in your head.
That's cute.
So
That was great. A little bit of the southernness coming through too.
well, you know, and I just started writing Southern poems when I came to Minnesota. You know, I mean, I don't know what happened. It's just, I think maybe being a grandmother and, you know, it brought up a lot of my childhood stuff, and I just started just bringing back the voices of my people, my ancestors and stuff. So and then I kind of like doing form poems, and I like using the vernacular, the Southern vernacular in these, you know, formal poems. I think that's kind of fun. So I'm going to read this one. It's a Curiel sonnet, and it's called Dim Days, D-I-M, Dim Days. Used to be you knew where you stood. Men was men, not none of these gays. We had hard work and life was good. Things was different in dim days. We knew our sexuality, no questioning law's natural ways. We just dealt in reality. Things was different in dim days. I might have had a thought or two, could have set my morals astrays. But what you think ain't what you do. Things was different in them days. Used to be you knew where you stood. Things was different in them days. So I remember those dim days. Let's see, what else did I have? Okay, this one is called Family Reunion. The beach, the sand, the heat, the crest, the trough, the wave, the salt, the sky, the fish, the secrets in the grave, the sweat, the nap, the fan, the room, the bed, the smell, the squeak, the stain, the pain, the secrets we don't tell.
Oh, I like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. This
Well, do you have one more poem for us?
one, you want one more?
Totally.
Okay. This one is called Porch Sitting, Pondering a Curiosity. Yessa, that girl show is curious. I remember she came fishing with me and the boys. She's probably about 5, maybe 6. I goes to bait my hook, and all them worms was gone. And she there, sitting on that dock, her little feet dangling over the water, sitting there just as pretty as you please. I says, what happened to all them worms that was here? She ate them, she says. You know, that's right. She had ate every last one of them worms. I says, why? Why on earth, child, would you eat them worms? Wanted to know what they tasted like, she says. But we had a bunch, maybe 20, I says. Why would you eat them all? Tasted good, she says. Yeah, that's her, Granddaddy said. She curious that way too, but that's not what I meant. I meant she's curious in the way that now, at 16, she still goes fishing with the boys, and all she wants to catch is fish.
Oh, well, see, I wonder if we have any questions in the chat. Are there, Julie, any questions?
No, but I have a question.
Oh, okay.
I'm wondering if, Amanda, are we looking at you still living in a motorhome? We see your blue walls and your head is right up next to your ceiling.
Yeah, that's the angle of my computer screen. Yeah.
Are you still in a motorhome?
No, I am not still in a motorhome. I sold my motorhome 2 years after I landed in Mankato. So yeah, I bought a manufactured home here. I'm in a mobile home, which is similar, but much bigger.
Okay, and Annette has a question. Annette Gigliardi asks, when will you have a book out, Amanda?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. I was just talking to a friend the other night saying that I have actually, I keep writing, I am writing, but I think I'm not writing because I don't think I have any poems because I haven't put them out there. It's like something about, if you don't put them out there, it's like they're not really poems yet. So she told me I need to get an assistant. So Annette, if you want to be my assistant and help me gather up some poems.
It's hard to do your own stuff when you're doing so much for others.
Well, that too. Yeah. But you know, sometimes I feel that way, but then I also think, yeah, you know, I'm just kidding myself. You know, I mean, I can do a lot of things, you know, so that's just another, you know, excuse. It takes discipline to just, I mean, you just have to put yourself to the test. of putting
I
it
had
all
somebody help
together.
me get mine together and organize them. So
Well,
it may be that.
Yeah, you know, and actually, I
That's
think
what we
I
did.
might be able to get a grant for that because I think Sue did get a grant for that and got John Wisniewski to help her with hers.
Mhm.
Well, and is there anything you want to tell us about the fall convention this year?
Oh yeah, I'd love to. We're having the fall conference in Alexandria, Minnesota, at the Arrowwood Resort and Convention Center, and it's from November 4th, 5th, and 6th. And Friday night we're going to have a poetry critique session, and then Saturday we'll have a series of workshops, and we're having a winners gala Saturday night. We're going to have the contest winning poems will be read Saturday night, and then Sunday morning we're going to have a cooking poems show that should be fairly entertaining. So it's going to be a lot of fun in Alexandria, Minnesota.
Cool.
There's a couple more questions in the chat. Susan Chambers asks, will you enter the Blackberry Peach this year?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But Sue Chambers did a great job at the Ice House this year with her slam poem.
And Deborah asked if you could put the titles of the books that you're giving away in the chat.
Okay, I think I can do that. River had me put my speaker view on.
Oh, you can take it off now.
Okay.
Now it's just us. All right, so